And but we kept at it year after year after year because, of course, it was making this sector extremely profitable. And that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, the whole idea of pushing NATO into Eastern Europe and then flirting now with the Ukraine is a provocation, but that, of course, is not the way it is presented to the American public.
Well, and it's so interesting because even in the article, you mentioned how this is truly a bipartisan issue, whether it's a Democrat or Republican president. They bring us into war, the other side pushes the narrative along with it. Yet, as you mentioned, when there's any pushback from a politician, then they are cast out, as you say, into oblivion. And we forget as Americans, Congress has to vote us into the war. The president seems to just kind of take it as is. I mean, it's like the cycle continues, and it's how does it even stop?
Well, this is the problem. So the two national figures who opposed the war industry after World War II were Henry Wallace in 1948. He had been Roosevelt's vice president, and both parties, the leadership in both parties, destroyed him politically. And they did the same thing to George McGovern in 1972. Again, McGovern was a highly decorated World War II pilot. And so in that, they're completely in lockstep with the war industry. And you will have politicians, Barack Obama, when he first ran for president, in his platforms, said that he had opposed the invasion of Iraq.
Right.
There was scant evidence for that, by the way. But what happened once he was in power? He and the other Democrats have to support our troops. So they vote for and support these massive military budgets. And it's important to remember that we borrow. There's a figure in that article from Brown. I can't remember the figure. Maybe I can read it, but I mean, by 2050 or something, 650 trillion in interest. So I mean, most of the American government is now funded by deficit, but that's particularly true in the war industry. So it's self-defeating. And the irony is, I think China owns about $1 trillion of our debt, and we have to pay very hefty interest on that. And so, in essence, that interest is funding, at least in part, the Chinese military itself. But the war industry, that's what we do. It is bipartisan. Wars can be started by Democrats. Harry S. Truman started the Korean War, Kennedy and Johnson, the Vietnam War, George W. Bush, of course, the endless wars in the Middle East. But it doesn't matter. They are. You may have a Barack Obama and Joe Biden in the White House, but they can continue that policy. So I think those of us and I covered the revolutions in Eastern Europe. I was in East Germany. I was in then Czechoslovakia, in Romania, which was about as insane as it looked. So I was there.
Well, that's my next question to you is, you have been a war correspondent. You've seen a lot of things. And just like Smedley Butler did, is the disconnect here that Americans, they're over there, we don't see it here, it's not on our own soil. We haven't fought in a war as bloody since probably the Civil War on our own land. So it's like, is that the disconnect? Why Americans kind of go along and okay, support the troops?
Well, that and the fact that it's a volunteer army. So, and that means that those who are most economically disadvantaged are those who pay the price.
Yep.
In the military, and middle-class kids and certainly wealthy kids generally don't serve.
I am a former U.S. soldier.
So there is a price to pay.
Dead serious.
But it's not paid by a politically empowered
Makes me
class.
sad and mad.
And then that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the coverage is almost non-existent. And this is the kind of atrophy of the press. But foreign bureaus have vanished. I ran foreign bureaus. I ran
It's dead serious. We need to end corruption in the government and take back our democracy.
And the people at the Grey Zone do, and Counterpunch does, and so on. But our
Period.
numbers are sort of tiny
It's crazy.
compared with what
There should not be some young, soldiers, basically almost kids still today, in today's world, and how we develop as people. Basically kids out there murdering each other because of governments, having little fights over some
brave and that truthful.
That's
Yeah,
the truth.
the ramifications of everything he did continue
Sorry
to
for
ripple
my
through the world.
cussing.
I mean, we wouldn't have seen the Arab Spring. And we've been lied into war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Vietnam, Korea, and now people, honestly, the mainstream media wants to look at us and say, no, we're telling the truth this time. This one is real.
Yeah, and why does it get bought by large swathes of the population? Mainly because the mainstream media is completely in the pocket of corporate America and the oligarchs and supports anything that will support the status quo, as is your president, Joe Biden. He's kind of irrelevant to these discussions. Now then, the fact remains, though, which is why you and I are having this conversation, that we, the people, those of us who have love in our hearts for one another and for all our brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their ethnicity or their religion or their nationality or whatever, those of us who actually care about human rights, we continue every day to shout into the howling gale of repression. Julian Assange is an important journalist. He probably should be the most revered man on earth right now. We need him more than we need anyone else in the world. You can put all the bloody Joe Bidens and Jeff Bezos's and Bill Gates's and Mark Zuckerberg's, all those people who are very rich and powerful, you could put them all in a bucket and throw them overboard. And that would be a good way of getting rid of some of the weight in the lifeboat that may carry us to a safe haven one day. But you cannot throw Julian Assange out of bed. He is the straw that we're grasping at in order to prevent these nasty from killing us all. It's not just my view, that is a simple truth. That's the truth of the matter.
Well said, well said.
I can see the argument one can make for saying it's not like over and nothing, but seriously, what is it mostly about? It's about the expansion of NATO. Trying to get more members of NATO, Ukraine, being able probably to sell them weapons, because the U.S., one of our biggest exports is weapons, and and that's what I think a lot of it is. It's corruption in government. It's about money, politicians backed by government. It's about geopolitical power, which to some degree is okay. Yeah, I mean, having some power obviously helps the United States, having control of the oceans, etc. But that makes sense. That's okay-ish, as long as you don't, as long as you're not unjust and corrupt. But it seems like we're not that. And just a lot of the things we've done, America's done for so many years now. And people are tired of it, and our government is totally in debt and can't afford to go to more wars. We spend so much money, spending so much money on the military, $7 billion. Obviously, it's more than the next top 10 countries combined. So it's like, why is that? Why are we not setting the spending at the minimum level? And then if something comes up or something, a war or something else comes up, then we actually have to go through Congress to pass, action, Congress and the president. Then they can take more money and actually do some stuff if they need to. I don't understand. This is the way any government saying like business or whatever would operate. You don't spend more money than what you need to. Especially when you owe money and you're paying like however much money we're paying on interest to our loans to China. And all this does is, benefiting China because we're in such a bad state. Instead of building up domestically, like educationally, especially in today's world, and fixing our own problems and our reliance on oil and fossil fuels, etc., where we could actually save money or create jobs domestically, at least short term, and create, goodness. We're just wasting money away. And there's no, Trump, don't tell me he's a conservative when he barely, the government's still spending the same amount. He's just cutting some things he doesn't like, while at the same time giving more power to the federal government. And then, Democrats come in. It's not like they take away that power. It's not like the president is doing away with recent changes that gives the president more immunity to just do whatever they want. It's totally wrong, in my opinion. With government or military spending, there's going to be some more than just the bare minimums. You're going to have, plans in action that are going to cost more money. But that's kind of like, just normal operations and upkeep and progress. But how does that justify, so many billions? You have to wonder. I think Bill Clinton was actually a decent conservative as far as presidents go in the United States recently. It's not like I like him that much or all of the things he did or anything, but as far as actually economically, business kind of thinking and ways, he did pretty good. Got America out of debt quite a bit. He benefited from the times of the dot-com boom a bit, obviously. Then we had, George Bush. The Republican presidents we've had have been pretty terrible, I think. Bush Jr., Trump, they're so, corporate, changing, trying to push for pretty much just corporate economics. Much Obama and the Democrats are the same way. There's really no difference, huge difference in that. In this way, in that they're all, pretty conservative, corporate, more corporate favored economic thinking, or capitalist thinking. Not very, socialist at all, or social services, government social services. Obama tried to do some things with healthcare, obviously. His first plan, I think, was pretty good to try to offer, a government healthcare insurance plan that would actually compete with the free market. But obviously it got all changed around and blah 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 and made huge. Now, you know, health insurance costs more than what it did before he came in. But there is some advantages and some good things within that bill passed, you know, and he did. You could say he did, but it's not just all up to one person. But yeah, I think a president also has to be judged not just for their term, but the after effects of their presidency for the years after them. Like how the economy does after they're leaving office, you know. Some of the after effects, which, you know, I think Bill Clinton, you know, obviously did well while he was in, but then we had George Bush, and obviously a lot of things led to the 2008 financial collapse and recession. They loosened a lot of things up, which creates, you know, maybe a good in the short term, but if it's not right, if it's not correct, it's basically fake. And it will go to, you know, helping certain people while hurting the overall people, most time, the overall working and middle class people of America always get screwed. So that's the way it is. It's a huge, big game. They don't want you to think outside of these systems. And then nowadays, it's like we have all these people on Twitter or whatever, basically calling themselves, you know, like communists or comrades and stuff like that. And it's like, oh geez, I don't want that. It's not like capitalism is bad, but yeah, in America, obviously, the word socialism has such been deranged, and when actually social services, you know, well, we have social security, we have roads, we have highways, we have dams and bridges and electricity and all these things. Obviously, the government helped build, and it's, you know, should be a democracy that the people, you know, agree to these things for government spending, because it comes from the taxes, mostly off of the, you know, a lot of people, different people and things, but should be more fair, I believe. Yeah, believe we need to focus. The whole world actually really needs to just stop acting crazy, start being smart, learn from the past and history. We just really need to come together and deal with the climate crisis. It's almost like, and this is with me too, that we've accepted climate change to such a degree, and like the implications, and that the future is going to be hard and sucky, and we're going to have a lot of terrible effects. But then, you know, we've accepted it, but now the actual, like, you know, what's needed to be done, it seems like it's just falling off. Seems like it's really dropping off. Like, I thought there'd be like some kind of turning point or something somewhere. You know, you see it throughout the 2000s and the environmental movement. Things are slowly, yeah, it's all good to be green and sustainable now, but a lot of it's so much greenwashing until we actually commit to, to some hard things, some hard truths, some work to be done, then what, it's not gonna be good. It's really just kind of a malaise of just taking it easy. Things are kind of good. We have it pretty good here in America, first world countries. We're gonna do some stuff. It'll be we're doing it. Well, not really. Not really. The Paris Climate Accord is, countries are not living up to it, really. I mean, we are increasing a lot of energy, but it's mostly because of the economics, the cost of renewables. But, the government, at least here in America, it's like, okay, Mr. Biden tweeted he's gonna switch all the governmental or federal vehicles to electric. It's like, that's great, that's fine, okay, whatever. But the bigger problem, the bigger thing of that is generating clean electricity to actually charge all of our electric vehicles and crap. It's not about consumerism, buying all this new stuff, whatever, because that obviously takes a lot of resources. This is just facts. It's about, being smart, really. You actually have to make sacrifices and actually cut your emissions. The military, for example, uses a ton of emissions. We have a huge military. What are we doing most of the time? Not much. It's not. Well, I feel like humanity needs to advance to a more peaceful, smarter, wiser state. Just stop being so crazy, power hungry, and just create a nice, beautiful world for people. Respect other people's cultural, and just stop caring so much about greed and trying to, take over the world and, enrich for the sake of enriching ourselves and our corporation growing. It's that's crazy. To be honest. What's the point? What is the point? I honestly think corporations should have rules on them, especially, the 1908 or 1909 ruling that corporations are people. Well, if corporations are people, corporations should be held to standards of morale and have moralities as well. They shouldn't have this rule that CEOs can't hurt their companies, say anything that would hurt their company's, stock price or, people's feelings towards it. That's crazy. That's a crazy rule. And the fact that, what kind of capitalism do we have? Is it just slave market type capitalism where just money can buy everything? People can't buy people anymore, so why can corporations just buy out another corporation or just merge them together? You know, I don't think that's good rules for capitalism and increasing competition. You know, that doesn't work very well. But anyways, yeah. I agree that technology should work for humans. You know, we should be smart in how we go forward during these times. This is a huge thing. I believe we should implement government based on actual social science. Science being the key word, like more hard science, data, to develop the best. You know, that government should be more lean and adoptable in this way, but stand on very strong foundations, core principles, like moral based, say highest, types, such as truth and transparency, goodness, opposite of corruption, deception. We have so much science coming out and everything. What's the point of it if it's not actually used for any good? You know, so much information now. We're in the age of information. People know so much. So many experts out there. But what's actually, developing within our systems of actual living towards actual living day to day with the government, with our communities, with ourselves, like how we spend government money, etc. Programs, what's most effective, But at the same time, obviously, you don't want to just push people. If you're right, if you believe in something, you just say it, and that's all. You just defend yourself, you give the information, and you walk away. You don't have to get angry, be mean to people, etc. Just walk the walk, be upright. Let people decide for themselves, and just be adults.